What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Boogie9288, featuring Bonehead in the background as a little dot. And today we're gonna be making a video because I was going to research this and then I decided, wow, that is never gonna get made and it's gonna sit on the list of video ideas that you have on your phone. Why not just record it, stream of consciousness, and get it out? So I'm going to be talking about why forking distributions of Linux really is not a problem for anybody, especially right now because we're in a situation where a lot of the problems with it are going away entirely, as long as everybody can pick up the one standard that we should all be using, which is Flatpak, to get things going. But this also dovetails nicely into another talk that I want to do too about Chromium, because there's been a lot of people talking about how, oh no, Firefox has dropped below 5% market share. What are we gonna do, man? What we're gonna do is everybody's gonna switch to Chromium as a base, and that doesn't hurt anybody, and it has better engineering behind it too. Like what's the JavaScript engine called? I should know this. I want to say it's like, starts with an I. What is the Chrome JavaScript? V8 engine. Okay, that's what I was. Why did I think it started with an I? V8 engine, dude. Dude, it's so powerful. Essentially, Firefox already died too because their packaging standard for extensions got owned by web extensions, and like you're irrelevant, dude. Hop on a different bandwagon, you're dead. But things that aren't dead, let's talk about Linux distributions and why this chart that gets brought up a lot, if you follow discussions on places where people, kind of not lay people, but enthusiasts who are kind of just sitting on the surface, bring things like this up all the time. Mainly like wheel spinning of Linux distributions in general. Like, why do we need all of these different competing standards? But these aren't competing standards. What you're looking at is just how you're icing the cake. The cake is already made. You're just putting icing over top of it. Your favorite flavor, dude. We got all these different flavors of Linux. Things like Knoppix and Ubuntu and all of these things. Okay, let's just flip back over. What do I mean by they're not competing standards? Some of these do have things that you could say are competing standards. So things like package managers. Should we be using deb files for packaging? Should we be using RPM files for packaging? What package manager should we be using? Why do people reinvent the wheel with package managers all the time? Like, when Red Hat made Cent and Fedora, why didn't they just use Debian as the base, man? They could have used all of that great already existing code base. Well, the point is, they didn't want to use it, and thankfully, you don't have to. The core underlying part of all Linux-based platforms is the kernel, and then you stack the GNU Plus side of things on top of it. So if you're using desktop Linux, and a lot of these are actually server-side Linux too, right? Well, like Ubuntu and things have server-side, so I can't see why not. Damn vulnerable Linux? I've never heard of that. That sounds pretty cool. It doesn't matter which of these things you choose because the cake is the same no matter where you are. And with things like Flatpak, we're moving towards a situation where for end users who are doing graphical stuff or even command line things, we just have a system coming down the line that I think most people are embracing. Flatpak, if you've never heard of this before, number one, it's made by everyone's most favoritist company in the entire world, Red Hat, right? This is made by Red Hat? No? Who owns this? The idea of using application containers in GNOME was first proposed by Lennart Pottering, who published an article about it in 2014. Who owns this? Not to be confused with Flatpak. Oh, of course, ready to assemble furniture. Pfft, obviously. There I was looking to download Steam, and I end up getting the instructions for a ready to assemble furniture flat packed bookshelf. Come on, man. I've gone very tangential here, and this is why you should research things before you just pop out of the gate. Who owns this? About us. I really thought that they were owned by Red Hat. Flatpak is developed by an independent community made up of contributors, volunteers, and supporting organizations. Okay, anyway. Flatpak is competing with Snaps, which I think Snaps is just kind of a generally agreed upon worse implementation of Flatpak. If everybody could get behind this, it'd be really great. The problem with package managers in general is that they're applying things in, like a lot of these distributions store their files in different places. So if your path and things are different, you might not have the right libraries in the right places, and then you will not be able to run programs. The nice thing with flat-packed applications is that they come kind of containerized. To my understanding, they just kind of make a little Docker-like container that spins off of your already existing system, but it knows where everything is, and everything is in the right place. It makes it happy, and then you can run whatever you want, wherever you want, and that's the nice thing about it. So, wheel spinning, forking, the main idea of the video. We're getting back into it, don't worry. Things like this chart is mainly just these main three, right? We got Debian over here. We got Slack. Who else? We got Red Hat Linux. But a lot of people who are over here are kind of in this kind of environment where they're thinking, geez, look at all the wheels spinning. Do I download Elementary OS? Or do I download Ubuntu? Or what version of Ubuntu should I download? Should it be Lubuntu? Or should it be or Kubuntu? I don't know, dude. And should I download KDE Neon? Should I be downloading regular Debian? It honestly doesn't matter. Most of the time for end user desktop Linux stuff like Linux Mint or Deepin or Fedora or whatever. I guess Fedora really is. I was just using that as a flagship GNOME 3 distribution. But a lot of the time when people are talking about swapping distros, the reason why they do it is because the default desktop environment is just something different, right? So Ubuntu used to ship with GNOME 2, and then GNOME 2 got deprecated and forked into Mate, and GNOME 3 comes out of that, but Ubuntu also switched to Unity before that, and nobody really picked that up. But it doesn't matter, man. If you want to be wheel spinning and doing a different desktop environment, the thing that you're interacting with every single day for hours and hours and hours a day, if you don't like what you're dealing with, what is a great way to solve that? Well, I don't really like Mate, so I'm gonna make Cinnamon, or I'm gonna make i3, or Awesome, or what's that? X Monad. That's what the hipsters like, is X Monad. i3 gaps, or they've got what's the suckless one? Suckless WM? Who knows? Uh, Anyway, that sort of stuff doesn't matter. It's all the same cake with different icing. And you're really not wheel spinning by doing that. If you want to make a different music player app because you don't like one that you had before, you can start from scratch, or you can fork the existing one. And when you're so far off the beaten path where you're like, I don't like all of these design decisions, you just have a totally different product. And that's not a bad thing, because that's what all software is, right? Like, why did they make VS Code when they could have just contributed to Notepad++? Well, number one, Notepad++ is under GPL v2, and VS Code is under MIT. So one is more free than the other. But they're two different products that accomplish the same thing. And they're not competing standards, because text is text. Competing standards would be something like, well, we have our proprietary Windows Word document. What? Dude, I don't even know what the Word document format is anymore. When's the last time that you got a Word document? I know OTF, open text file, right? But what else do they have? I forget. I know PowerPoint was PPT, right? Word dot something. Somebody knows. Somebody knows out there. You're in a situation where you're making competing standards when you're designing something like that. And in that case, if one side if they do exactly the same thing, like a rendering engine for web pages, say, which I'm going to talk about in a Firefox video, you just gotta suck it up and switch over to the standard, man. Situations like this, where you've got this gigantic mess, this big ol' rat's nest of different distributions, it doesn't matter, because what's underneath is the same. You're all hanging out on the same base platform. So if you want to develop your own DE, it really doesn't matter. If you want to make your own music app, it really doesn't matter, because it's not a matter of which is the best way so that we can all move forward. It's political, and you say, I really don't like those guys, I'm going to go fork their project, or I don't like those guys, I'm going to make a project without their thing. Nobody's right. And that's how you end up with situations like this. But standards, like Flatpak, this everybody should hop on board with. That's my opinion. Then we get rid of a lot of incompatibility between... They're not really incompatible. They're incompatible if you don't want to build from source. And that's where the problem comes in. Because end users that are like, I'm going to install Fedora because I wear Fedora to school, so I think that I'll be using Fedora Linux. They go to the Steam download page and they're like, what the hell? You only have a deb file? How the hell am I going to install this on my Fedora system? Where's the RPM at? Flatpak solves that. Doesn't matter what DE you're using, things are going to run. Doesn't matter what system you're running, things are going to run. If you've ever used Docker before, oh my god, Docker's so easy. Oh god, it's so easy. Remember when you had to go and actually set things up or like run some stupid install script that was like, okay, I'm gonna check your distribution here. Okay, you got to get all these dependencies. No, 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 no. It just grabs everything it needs, and then it runs fine on top of your system. That's how Flatpak is, and that's why it's prime. Anyway, that was a great ramble. I think that I really got a lot out. 15 minutes of saying nothing except for people who complain about this sort of stuff are stupid because the invested development time is not put in on making the same thing twice. It's put in to get to a different peak on the same mountain, or to the same peak on the same mountain, but taking a different path. And that path can sometimes matter a lot. So thanks for watching, and have a restful sleep like old bone. Peace out.